So you want to work in big tech companies like Google and Facebook, or create your own startup like Airbnb and Instagram? OmniQuotient is here to help. OmniQuotient is an online learning platform where you can learn something new from prominent developers every day while creating meaningful connections with them. Just go to omniquotient.com. Follow the topics that you want to learn and the developers you want to learn from. Share your tips and tricks in coding and interact with other developers. Join the OmniQuotient community today.
Hello, good evening.
Hello,
I didn't hear
everyone.
I didn't hear the music, Sharp. What happened to our music in there?
Oh, I thought it was playing actually. My bad, my bad.
No worries. I was like, dead air, dead air. Oh my gosh. Hi. Hi. Well, thank you
Welcome
everyone
back,
for
guys.
joining us for CTOs Discuss. I know we took a break for one weekend, and we took that time to kind of plan out
Yeah,
what's next,
yeah.
where are we going with this, where are we going with this. And so we are quite excited to share some of our plans to you guys.
Exactly. So what we did was, you remember the very first episode that we did, right? We did a retrospective on the pandemic. So that's what we actually did last Saturday with the team. Now with Lenly, Krisha,
We did a
and we've
retrospective, yeah.
yeah, and we've discovered certain things that we were doing so well that you guys also love, and at the same time the things that didn't go well too much, right? So we have done some changes, and obviously we didn't do so well like with the music this evening pero everything else should improve, no? So it's gonna be a bigger, better CTOs discuss moving forward. So
Woohoo!
yes, sir. Bert, would you mind telling everyone like what we have in store? Like
Sure.
what are the new things we're planning for everybody?
Sure. Okay. So we kind of like thought, what really do we want to do with CTOs Discuss? Like, why are we doing this every week? And, Jerb and I talking about these things. What do we really want to do? And we realized that why we really want to do this is because we believe that technology is not only now, but it's
Mm,
like the future. And
it is.
technology permeates into every aspect of our lives. And I think it's important for people to be aware, to find out more, to go broad and even go deep into technology topics. So, what we've planned for all of you guys is every month we're going to have a theme. We're going to have a broad theme
Ooh.
on a specific area of technology. Say, for example, careers in technology. That's one broad theme.
Yeah,
Blockchain. That's one broad theme. Artificial intelligence. That's another
intelligence.
broad theme. And every month we're going to pick one broad theme, and then we'll start the month with kind of just like you know a broad idea of what that specific field is or topic is. And then the next few weeks for that month we're going to go deep. We're going to
Right.
discuss the topics deeply, um, and we might even invite some guests who know more about that specific topic. Let's say experts, technology experts in that
Right.
specific topic, so we can go deep. And also invite multiple guests so we have different perspectives of the same topic. And we love this perspective things because we learn more from different perspectives.
Correct,
So
correct.
yep. Sure. Maybe
Yeah,
for next month, can you tell them what our topic will be and maybe
for
talk about
sure,
our
for
guests?
sure. For sure. So this topic is actually quite uh a favorite amongst all you guys, no? And we noticed now when we talked about work in IT, just like when we invited Nicole and Marcy, and at the same time, also I think it was our second or third episode where we kind of talked about our paths, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
IT career as a path. There was a lot of interest, no? So we are gonna in the next month we are going to discuss this topic some more. No? And the very first one is actually IT careers. No? So we are gonna look at the different paths, and we're gonna invite people and experts about software engineering. That's one thing. No? So a developer is very like an obvious career path that you go to as an IT for an IT profession. Other ones are UX and UI design, no? So for that,
Uh-huh.
no, for actually software engineering, we're inviting an expert, no? Say Don Gamboa from White Cloak. So these guys are a software development company, just like Sim, but at the same time, no, they really started from scratch also, no? And I think their perspectives would be really good in terms of giving you guys an idea of how you should go, and approach your IT career, no, for moving forward. The second one is UX UI, no, and our expert to be invited during that Saturday is CSJ himself, no. Bert, maybe you can talk
Yeah.
about CSJ,
CSJ. He's known as CSJ, but for those who are not familiar, if you want to Google him, it's Christian San
Christian San
Jose.
Jose.
So he's the founder of UX Plus University.
Yeah,
And this guy, I mean, you should just watch this episode because you will. He has an amazing career path, I would say, for a designer.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
he basically, oh my, he actually designed like the website for Kobe Bryant. I think he did work for Kobe
yeah,
Bryant, and he actually met the guy
yeah.
in real
Sobrang
life.
galing nito, guys. And I think you guys should really
Yeah,
uh watch out for that episode, no. And right now UX University is actually like its own company, and maganda yung way that they did things. It's very low tech as well, no. Yan
low
isa
tech. What do
yan
you mean by
sa
low tech?
Oh, that one you should watch out on that
Okay,
episode, Bert.
okay.
I think si Christian would share about that, no? How they did this company using low tech lang yung approach nila. Very minimal code, no code. Yun yung term niya pala, no code, no?
No
The
code.
next career path I think that you guys would be interested in is QA/QE, no? So quality assurance and quality engineering. And actually, if in college before, I didn't think that these things would actually be full-time professions. I thought that these
Mm-hmm.
are things that, as a developer, ikaw yun lahat, di ba? And yun nga, maybe depending on the maturity of the company that you're working with, you might be actually doing all of those things. No, ikaw yung nag-UI design, no? You're the one that designs the website, ikaw yung gumagawa ng buttons, ng logo, the download ka, etc., etc. Or even test it out, right? But as, things get bigger, and I guess the stakes or the risks are also bigger, then certain roles are better suited na parang full-time position na siya. So etong testing, no? Like it's not just the manual testing lang, no? So this expert of ours is one of the ones that first coined quality engineering in the country. So Michelle Lagare
Michelle
from
Lagare.
yeah, Mitch Lagare or Michelle Lagare from QE360 is going to join us in one of the Saturdays for CTOs Discuss to talk about quality assurance and quality engineering. The other ones where we haven't yet, booked anybody yet are project management and Scrum. So yan, isa din yan sa role
Ooh.
na maganda na pagdiskusan natin, pagtuunan ng pansin, a full Saturday for that one also. Yun. So very exciting stuff, no? For everybody. So we will be posting a calendar, no, of all these planned activities on the CTOs Discuss page. So watch out. And if you guys have any questions for these people, to ask ahead of time, send them our way so that we can ask them live, no, during that specific episode. How about
Awesome.
today, Bert? What are we doing today?
Well, today we thought about answering one question because we actually talked about we're gonna have a timeout, give us some suggestions of what
Yeah.
to talk about, and then there's this one guy
Mm.
from John Adan. Sorry if I mispronounce your family name, but
Yeah.
he suggested us a topic, and I think it's a perfect topic for us because he says here, I'd like to suggest these topics: career paths in IT, myths and misconceptions about IT/CS college programs, and technopreneurship here in the Philippines. And this is great for us because actually Jerv can give us a very good perspective of like the IT career from a perspective of somebody who worked their way up to the corporate career
Yeah.
ladder. And
Yeah.
I can give some perspectives from the technopreneurship here in the Philippines, sort of
Yeah,
career
saktong
path.
sakto actually. I think our experience is well suited to answer this question. So,
Okay, so why don't we dive straight into it? Bef- let's go first into like what is the myths and misconceptions about the IT/CS college program. Jerb, do you want to take a stab at this? I mean, I took IT. Did you take IT or CS?
I took IT. Yeah, I
Oh
took
no, so
IT.
we're kind of both IT, right?
Yeah, yeah. Pero
Yeah.
sige, let's ano siguro parang medyo not so outsider's perspective, I guess, no. But during that time in college, I think the main difference was um the guys doing CS had more theory. They had more theory related stuff, no. So they dived into the whys of computer science more than the IT guys. Now we had more parang paano ba? Parang more of application
Mm.
bias, no?
Mm-hmm.
But the curriculum may have changed kasi since 2000 where
Yeah.
when did I graduated? 2009. Yeah,
So
yeah,
I guess
yeah.
it's just I will share my assumption, okay? And I've
Go.
been 10 years out of that, out
School.
of school. So
Yeah.
my assumption after processing all these applications and all, my understanding is that computer science focuses primarily on software. Hold on, I have like a visitor. Oh, the joys of working from home. My mom just said hi, dinner's ready. I'd like
Hello. Ooh,
okay.
what's for dinner?
Well, going back, computer science is
Yes.
really like focused on software, right?
Mm.
Software into building software, designing,
Yeah.
architecting software, creating software, developing software. Well, on the other hand, IT is actually this intersection of software and business, right? And I think you nailed
Mm,
it when you said application, right?
yeah.
Whereas a computer science person would be fully focused on like what building the software specifically. An IT person would be more concerned about like how can I use this
Use
software
cases, no?
for
Uh-uh, uh-uh,
business,
uh-uh,
right?
actually.
Or yeah, and so that's why it's called like information technology, where I guess the information there is like the assumption that businesses use technology to provide information to make informed decisions.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
I don't the other thing then, Bert, no, is uh before I thought that as an IT individual
Mm.
or going through that IT course, parang I'm gonna learn all the languages, right? And I
Mm.
actually I kind of touched on this before then, no, na I think some of the academic materials would have to be updated because at that time we were ano ba, from first year to third year, we were doing C. Now, I don't know now, no, again, in the other, like other curriculums now, and most likely it's been updated. But at that time, C lang talaga kami, no, and we really dive deep into data structures. And I think because of that, though, no, mas naging na ano kami, we were more, ano ba, uh, I guess parang honed towards critical thinking kasi iba
Right.
yung ano eh, parang data structures talaga kasi. So parang ano siya, paano ba? Parang the way you approach things is different whereas and then we transitioned na to object oriented programming to Java. And then it was only at the time, no, fourth year when we were actually doing our thesis na where we actually learned several
More
other things.
modern programming
Oo,
languages.
oo, oo. Nung
Yeah.
una talaga, parang C. Believe it or not, guys.
Yeah.
C
Yeah.
talaga. And then Java, we dove into that also, object-oriented programming. But now, marami ng different models, di ba? Different frameworks. And I think, yun din, no? I think in school, you would be focusing on parang more of very fundamental things talaga. Hindi siya yung latest and greatest kaagad. I guess depende rin sa teacher. But how about you guys? Like, did you pick your own language to learn or
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, My experience with school was very I would say not normal. I went
Oo nga
through
pala.
I went to a very small school that was primarily a business school, and so I think the IT program was quite good, but I actually enjoyed the most part about it is like exposure to business and the fact that I had so much time to explore, and they had a huge emphasis on business, which I think that's what drove me to become a technopreneur, so to speak.
Mm,
But instead of talking about that, maybe I'll share a bit of what I believe school should be doing, right? Or college should be doing.
yeah.
And it's coming from a perspective of a person who hires the graduates. Not This is not somebody saying I'm a teacher and I know what you should be doing, but rather this is like I'm the guy receiving your graduates, and this is my perspective. So I think
Mm,
the primary objective of schools is to really prepare students to be ready for the industry, right?
right.
So you, as a school, you would measure your success by the ability of your students who graduate to be accepted and thrive in the industry as much as possible immediately, so to speak.
Yeah.
So number one, I think schools do a very good job of instilling the fundamentals. And I think that should still be the case because I don't think people should go to the modern languages right away, because then you lack the fundamentals of maybe like object oriented programming, data structures, as you said, like
Yeah.
how databases work, maybe even like the assembly language and how computers actually work in the low levels.
Yeah.
I think schools should touch on that, and they already do. And I think that's their strength, and they should continue to do so. I've seen that people who don't go through these things, like students that don't go through college but self teach themselves,
Ah.
usually through materials in the internet, they skip these things, right? And I think they have a weaker foundation, though they can still get things done. They have a weaker foundation. They have gaps in their knowledge, making them unable to immediately thrive. Right, like they kind of like have these gaps in their knowledge space that they're not able to make the best decisions right away, or not um, be great developers. It takes them longer. Okay,
Yeah.
this is of course a generalization, and it's not accurate. Of course, there are exceptions to this. So this is kind of like my general observation. So that's one thing. Fundamentals should continue to be taught. Second, I think I found it interesting when you said that on your fourth year, on your thesis, you kind of touch on modern languages. And I think that's absolutely key as well. I think if a school focuses primarily just on the fundamentals, and then suddenly on the fourth year, you're still teaching the fundamentals, or you're using an ancient language or a
Yeah.
language that's not really commonly used in the industry, then you will have somebody who's really, really good graduating but is not ready for the industry, right?
Totoo. Yeah.
And then that
Totoo.
person has to adjust. So you need to have some balance. You need to get the fundamentals right, and then on the last year of college, you bombard them with like what's there in the industry right now, right?
Yeah.
Like what right now. So right now, let's face it, it's Python, it's JavaScript. These are the things right now.
Yun
2 years
talaga.
ago, it was something else, right? Or
Yeah.
maybe it was Python, and maybe like 5 years ago it was even PHP in the Philippines, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but now it's definitely Python and JavaScript. So you got to have your students learning this on their fourth year, and they need to be applying these things, so by the time they graduate they have a very strong foundation in fundamentals, and
Yeah.
then they have the knowledge to do like Python and JavaScript, and they know Git, right? They know Git version
Yan,
control,
isa yan. Oo.
right? At least they should
Sobrang
have touched on
important.
that. Yeah. And then they have some knowledge on agile, right? Like the agile way of working. Maybe theoretically they also know waterfall and whatever, but the point is that they should be not ignorant, or they should be aware of the industry trends, and they've
Yeah.
used it, so that by the
Yeah.
time they graduate they literally can go, oh, now I got a job and I know how to thrive,
Yeah.
instead of
When did
like,
you go ahead? Go ahead muna
I was
before
gonna
I ask
say
the question.
they don't like graduate and go like, oh, school did not prepare me for like the industry, which is the usual what they
Ah.
say. And I think it's that missing last piece of introducing the modern languages and industry trends into the last layer of college right before they graduate.
When did you do your OJT? When was your OJT? Third year?
So actually, in my school, it's different. We didn't really have an OJT. We have something we call PBL, which is project based learning, which we
Oo.
required you to start a business. So that's
And
so I have a
push
very
talaga to be an
technopreneur background.
entrepreneur. Kaya
Yeah,
pala.
yeah,
Okay, okay.
yep.
Yung sa akin kasi nag-OJT and maybe we can transition na here to the career path. Ayan,
This
may
is
nagsabi
this.
dito.
it's a long comment. Let me
Go
read
ahead.
it out.
Go.
Magiging mahirap po ba ang pag-a-apply ngayon ng mga students sa field po ng IT or software engineering?
We know na online class po ngayon, does it have a
Ngayon,
big impact
since
since
most of the
most of the
OJT are only based from webinars and certificates instead of really working in a company remotely, most of the students. Thank you so
oh,
much. This is
this is a good
interesting.
question. Yeah, this is a good
Yeah.
question. Pero on this related topic, no, I just want to tie this back to the school thing, and then maybe we close that off. Then we transition to this.
Okay,
I
so
actually
programmer ako, thank you for the question. We will get back to it very shortly. So
yes.
we will get back to you like after what Jerb says. Go ahead.
Oo, connected naman to guys, connected to. So I actually think OJT should start sooner, like maybe even second year, like sophomore year, and maybe sa'yo, Bert, like yung business side, maybe kasi parang medyo different direction siya, I guess. And because I think this is, you came from IS, di ba? An IS international school, and mas heavy towards business talaga yung ano niya. And this was also the first year that they offered IT. Tama ba?
No,
Yung
no,
sa,
no, 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 no.
eh,
So, so I went to a school called CIE, Center for International
ah,
Education. Yes, it is an international school.
yeah.
And there were IT was already there, but they were primarily they're primarily a business school.
Yeah, yeah, yun. Yun siguro yung bias. Yeah, but I think for
Yeah,
regular ones, I think OJT should actually start sooner kasi that's where you can two sides to it. Benefit number one is that the students would actually know what real work is and be, applying kaagad yung mga natututunan nila. Because we had Scrum. We talked about Scrum in college, but I had no clue what it is. I only memorized
uh-huh.
na, okay, sabi, parang mas shorter daw yung delivery whereas in Waterfall, 3 months time, dun siya ilalabas. So sabi ko, hindi ba dapat ganun naman talaga? Parang you always deliver frequently. I didn't understand that, no? Whereas if it had been applied in real life, in my life, no, as a programmer or as someone in school at that time, mas maintindihan ko siya. So I think the sooner you can actually expose the students to real work
Right.
activities,
Yeah,
the better that they'll be prepared for the real world.
absolutely
Yon.
agree. Absolutely
Yeah.
agree. Actually, before when we still had an office, we had like senior high school students. So this is not even college. Senior high school students, I think on the STEM track. This is from Cebu City Science High School, right?
Uh-uh.
We had like senior high school students
Uy,
immersion.
alumni ako dyan. Hello,
Yeah,
hi.
hello.
uh,
Immersion, having their immersion at our place. And I think you're right, Jerb. Like I think exposure throughout the many years, right? In
yeah.
maybe earlier through their college experience will actually yield much better because they can appreciate like the application of what they're doing.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna add also
Uh-uh.
that I think as me coming from my perspective as an owner of people who hire interns or we eventually
Yeah.
like absorb interns is I really hate it when so this is my preference. I
Kasi
really hate
tatanggalin
it
ka agad sila, titrain mo tapos
when they
mawawala.
do like third year OJT, right? Like third year
Uh-uh.
OJT, like we give them a great time, and then you spot talent and you're so want to absorb them, but then they have to go back to school for their last year of college. I almost want to tell them, like, can you just stop school? Like,
Ooh. Pero yun actually yung second benefit that I wanted to talk about kasi because us employers are more, paano ba, comfortable with them na kasi nakita naman yung work output nila. So we know we want to absorb these guys right away.
yeah,
So that's actually one benefit. But the other thing that's painful for employers is actually after that required number of hours that they actually spend time with us, babalik silang school, no?
yeah,
Or
exactly.
tapos na, ganon. So, I think, dapat actually, meron talaga siya dapat na parang full-time or it's an elective talaga in in college na you spend like hours talaga until you graduate with a specific company. Maganda yon kasi it really prepares you for
Yeah, it's a smoother
uh
transition, I think.
oo,
I
oo,
mean, this is
oo.
coming from a strong bias of a person who is hiring. We tend to absorb interns who do well, and
Yeah,
so to have somebody do well in their internship program, and only to find out that they have to stop their internship because now they have to take up their last year of college.
yeah.
Ugh, I
Tough,
just have to say, I hate it. I
tough.
hate
Yeah,
it.
it is, it
Yeah.
is. Yeah, yun nga din yung sa'min, eh, parang, "Uy, may ano na, summer interns, gusto niyo ba?" Tas sa'min, nobody wants them because we train them tapos mawawala lang sila. Anyways, going to the question, magiging
Mm.
mahirap po ba ang pag-apply ngayon ng mga students sa field ng IT or software engineering? I don't think so. Actually, now is the best time to do it, 'no? And I think sakto din that, the pandemic's like a year old already. Everyone's kind of adjusted to the new normal. Hindi na
Mhm.
excuse ngayon na, "Hindi, virtual kasi mahirap." No, I think there's plenty of tools already and everyone has adjusted very well that this should be not a problem. It was probably a hiccup before because dahil nga sa pandemic, pero I think IT is definitely a future-proof profession, no? A very good field to be in, versus the other fields. And you guys wanna know how hard it is to hire people now because a lot of companies are also hiring people. Ganun
Mhm.
ka taas yung demand for IT, no? And if you're good, like a lot of companies will really ano look for talent like you, no? So that's coming from, yun nga, from a perspective of an employer. So I think it's a very good time. I don't think it's an excuse anymore na work from home to be in this field. How about you, Bert? What do you think?
I think overall demand for IT has
Yeah,
shot through the roof. Like
yeah,
it's just gone up so much. It is one of those industries that because of the pandemic, it has increased. Like it
yeah,
grew. Like
yeah,
hello, like Zoom, like how much increased in value because of the pandemic. Like Zoom, the communications tool, like before the pandemic, technology companies were like chill, right? Like, we're growing, we're taking over the world, blah, blah, blah. And then the pandemic hit, and then, oh my goodness, not only are we taking over the world is now depending on this, right?
yeah,
Like people have to go online. Now they pay their bills online. They order online. Everything is online. Um, so it's just demand for IT has shot through the roof. Now, obviously, if you don't know how to apply online, then and
yeah.
how can
Mahirap yun.
you be
Dapat di ka nag-IT.
how can you yeah, how can you be hired? There may be so much demand, there might be so much hiring, but if you don't know how to apply online, then you tinatawag na GG, right?
Yeah, mahirap, mahirap,
Yeah.
mahirap.
The
Yeah, yeah,
second question though, kind of like makes me sad.
yeah.
We know na online class po ngayon. Does it have a big impact? Since most of the OJTs are only based from webinars and certificates instead of really
Yeah.
working in a
Actually, nalito
company
ako dito. Ganun na ba
remotely.
ngayon? Parang webinars and certificates na lang ginagawa niyo as OJTs, hindi na actual company exposure?
That's why this makes me sad because
Yeah.
actually in Symph, and maybe we can also talk about UBX. I don't know if you guys accept interns right
Yeah,
now,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we do.
but I would say like interns during the pandemic for us for our company remote are having a better time than
Yeah.
when they were just interning in not remotely. And let me
Mm.
explain why. Because like before, when you were an intern in our company, you would come to our office, you would sit on a desk, and then like I would once in a while like talk to you, and like give you some tips, and you would talk to your manager, but you pretty much like revolve around your desk,
Yeah.
right? And you don't really get to know that many people, only the people around you. We kind of like introduce you to the whole team, but it's actually a great experience already, right? Don't get me wrong, it's a great experience, uh, physical space. But with remote, I have felt like I gotten to know our interns way more now. Like I know every intern in our company because of this remote thing. Why? Because we have activities that help us connect, right?
Yeah.
Like with everybody else, like you're meeting online. Now it's just like one person's face there. You click that and you tell, oh, you get on a call with somebody. Um, so I would say, in terms of from Sim's perspective, we have done remotely in such a way that it has actually helped us connect much more, especially also to interns. Like this inclusivity has extended to
Yeah.
interns. So when I hear something like this, like OJTs are now mostly based from webinars and certificates, it breaks my heart. I'm like, oh shucks, that sounds so sad.
Yeah. You
So
can, yeah. If you want to take initiative, you can probably ask your dean. right? Because most of these organizations would have partners na companies eh. Like for example, before when I was in San Carlos, this is a school in Cebu for those who are in Manila. Our dean had relationships with the different IT companies in Cebu. Now, I don't want to mention names, but also parang marami kasi mga sponsorships na gano'n, and
Mhm.
the dean might be able to put you in a good place, no? And with these na if magtatanong sila na, "Hey, meron ba kayong internship program that this person can join?" That should be a good route kasi maganda yun. And yun nga, sinabi namin yung benefits kanina, di ba, na during that internship program, if you actually do very well, may benefit yon kasi you learn how things are really done in real life. Second, some of those pa have allowance, no? Merong parang summer intern allowance. The third one is, yun nga, if you do really well, i-absorb ka, di ba? So wala na yung application process kasi comfortable na kami sa'yo eh. Hindi na wala ka ng entrance exam or interviews, all of that. You do that by actually doing work for that company earlier on. And yun nga, I think if you take initiative, it shouldn't don't play victim here. You should own your career, own your future, no, and maybe talk to someone who can help you. Um, yeah, if this is really a pressing concern of yours, maybe you reach out to Albert or me. No, maybe we can provide you some opportunity for OJT or
Yeah, it's any
internship.
direction.
Yeah,
I actually wanted to. That's a good point you mentioned about like don't be the victim here, because I just
yeah,
realized we know na online class po ngayon does it have a big impact, and yes, it's true, it has an impact. But then I
yeah,
realized as well, like Jerb and I, we used to do events, like we used to
yeah,
speak in public. Like I traveled a lot for events, and a lot of my lifestyle and strategy revolved around speaking in tech events.
yeah,
That's the way I reach my audience. That's the way I find
yeah.
new people to hire. That's a big part of my
Maganda. Yeah,
strategy. And then the pandemic happened, right? And so did it have an impact? It had a huge impact. I went from so many flights a year to zero. So what do I do? What do I do? This is exactly what we're doing now. Like look at me and Jerb right now. We're doing this online thing, talking with
yeah,
like lights in the background. We have to figure things out. We have to get better. We have to evolve. Or
yeah.
else we become irrelevant. Right? We get left
Totoo,
behind.
totoo.
And so with
Yeah,
you as well, I think this is what it needs. What this is what needs to happen. You need to take stock of the situation. You realize, oh yeah, now it's just online. Everything's online. So what do I do? Well, I have to learn the skill of communicating online. I have to learn the skill of working remotely. I have to learn the skill of reaching out and looking for internship opportunities or looking for work opportunities or
yeah,
learning opportunities online,
yeah,
because the
yeah,
situation has changed and you need to
yeah,
evolve. We all need to
yeah.
evolve.
Yeah. The other opportunities that are actually really good, no? Which I think din nag-lessen now, pero meron pa rin akong naririnig eh. Hackathons are really good
Mm,
opportunities for you guys to
yeah.
showcase your skill, and also get noticed by companies, right? Because most of these hackathons are backed by or sponsored by big companies.
Yeah,
Second
I
are Go ahead, Bert. You want to talk about that
you
a
you
little bit?
well, I want to touch on your hackathons because actually one of the guys behind CTOs Discuss, like he takes care of all our graphics. His name is Carl. He's
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's in college or still high school. He's just a student, bottom line. But
Mm,
dude, he is like the master contest to hackathon jumper that I know. Like he just goes from one contest to another, and this is his learning strategy. He's still in
yeah.
school, but he actually accelerates learning and
Yeah.
expands his network and his opportunities by jumping from one hackathon to contest to another. He wins some, he doesn't win everything, but at the end of the day, he learns, he grows, expands his opportunity. And yeah, Lenley just told
Yeah.
me Carl is in high school. Yep, and the guy is amazing. The guy is
Yeah,
amazing
galing.
because he's exposed himself to so many things and he takes an active stance, right? Not
Yeah.
like passive, like oh, what happens to me now, but more he really is very active, proactive at what he does.
Yeah,
So yeah,
magaling, magaling.
just wanted to add
I'm
it to
I'm
your
actually
point about
surprised. High
hackathons.
school pa pala. Grabe, galing mo, Carl. Saludo. I mean, that's a hustle, right? I
Yep.
mean, yun talaga, you have to hustle. The second opportunity are boot camps, no? These companies now, because yun nga, no, parang it's always a pain point to onboard an employee into something, no? Sometimes we tell them how we work, we train them about agile, we train them about the different, you know, approaches that we have or the frameworks that we support in our companies, right? So most of them actually do boot camps na, no? And that's boot camps are like the way into the company. So if you graduate in the boot camp, then you land on a full-time job, no? So okay din yung boot camps, no? Parang medyo mas long term, hindi naman long term, but longer siya than hackathons. Kasi usually hackathons are like 2 days
Yeah, yeah.
or weekend lang siya. Pero boot camps,
Yep.
it could span to 30 to 60 days. Depends, no? So those things are actually also good. So watch out for those things, no? From IT companies, because yeah, they're always hiring talent, and they're, you know, being more creative about where to look for fishes to catch. So fishes like you, and you need to be standing out. So you have to be more proactive.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of proactive, let's dive into the career path, siguro, Bert. Now, what
Sure.
maybe at this point, maybe you can start. Thank you so much for answering the question. By the way, we our Facebook page po have hope to have a collab with you. Definitely. So this is something that we would be excited to
Yeah.
have with you guys. Salamat, salamat. um Back to careers, right? So I you mentioned at the start of this episode, Bert, na both of us kind of took different directions, right? And I
Yeah.
think those perspectives are really good actually for people who want to be in the IT profession. So I'm coming more from an employee, right? I started my in the same way as I'm encouraging you guys now to do OJTs and do events. That's what I did before. No, I have to, paano ba, relying so much on your grades, and this is not bad, by the way. I'm not saying don't study anymore, don't go aim for higher grades, because that actually matters. But relying on that isn't gonna get you to get a job. No, experience is a bigger thing. No, and actually now when we interview fresh grads, we ask a lot about extracurricular activities. No, are they part of the school's program for X, for example? Because those things kind of give us, ano like an understanding of your attitude towards something else outside of the academic. No, so
Mm.
yon. I was very active in that before, and then I did na nga my OJT. So my track was more of I became OJT, and it was part of a school requirement. But same time, no, after the hours that were required at school, I actually continued on with my OJT. And I did this after college. I mean, not after college, but after school hours. No? So, after, for example, in some days, half day lang ako. No? So, I would go to the office of, at that time, Union Bank ako na developer in Cebu. I would go to our office and do my work there, real work, in a company that's giving me real tasks to do that affects their deliverables, their work or automation, etc., etc. So that's what I did, and then from there on, I, you know, that time web developer ako no, but after that, eto naman dito na naman nag-branch yung career ko versus someone who actually followed the IT path straight through, no? Kasi for example, if I was focusing towards my parang development lang talaga, so I would have been senior developer and then perhaps a team lead in a team of an IT organization, but I took uh like a slight pivot, I guess, towards product and business, and then went back to being CTO. So that's kind of ano muna, high level muna of what where I've been through, or what
Mhm.
I've been doing. And Albert took a different route actually. Bert, maybe you guys you can ano, you can tell us how you landed to being a CTO.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, I was still in school, and as I said, like our school is very much into business. Part of the requirement was to actually start a business in order to graduate, and so I was thinking of like how what kind of business can I make? how, what kind of business can I make a lot of money in? And to be honest, my inspiration was actually YouTube, because that was
YouTube.
around the time when I was walking through the halls of my college, and I saw in the bulletin board a newspaper clipping or like a printout. I forgot, but it was basically YouTube gets bought for $1.7 billion by
Yeah,
Google,
I remember
and
that
that's a lot
headline.
of money, and that's for a very short amount of time. Like 6 years, I think they got bought by Google after 6 years of starting for $1.7 billion, and that was phenomenal. And so I thought I could do that, right? I
Yeah,
could do something, because YouTube back then was just what? It's just a video sharing site.
yeah.
Just, I mean, just is an oversimplification, but
At
I
that
felt like it was
time.
something that I could do. And so I said, okay, what kind of technology can I do and build? And so I came up with other ideas. And I remember I at one point I built like an online grocery, and this
Yeah,
was during the time when there was Amazon Fresh was just even like not yet launched,
yeah.
actually. So I built an online grocery for Philippines, and that's when I started to realize that, oh my gosh, technology is actually just one component of business. This is a very
Oh,
important note that you need to remember.
yeah,
Most people make this mistake, and I made this mistake as well. We always think that technology or the product that you build is the only thing that's required. Like, you build a cool product and then that's it. That's all you
build
need to
it
do.
and they will come ang tawag dyan,
Yeah,
guys.
build it, they
Of
will
this
come. But
number.
actually, yeah, not just that, but build it, and then that's the only thing you need to do. The truth is,
Yeah,
there's so much. When you're building a business, a tech business, it's a business
yeah,
with a tech component, with a tech
yeah,
strategy, with
yeah,
tech as a big part of it, but not the only part
yeah,
of it. Like, there's
yeah,
marketing, there's sales, there's what else is there? I mean, you need to have financing also built into there. Your business model has to be there,
yeah,
and it's business. It's basically a business. And so at first I started this online grocery. I built a very cool software, and then I didn't even have a grocery. So I partnered with the grocery, and I realized, like, oh, you need to take pictures of all the items. Oh my gosh, like I need photography in here.
yeah,
So basically at the end of the day, I failed. That first business failed. I launched
yeah,
another business that failed as well. I launched a third business that failed as well, and finally launched another business that one kind of like had a glimmer of hope.
yeah,
For 2 years I ran that business, and then the fifth time I partnered up and with somebody who knew business better than I did, and I became CTO, and we came up with Symph, which is
yeah,
basically we build software for clients, and then we also build our products on the side. And I say this thing because most people don't understand that to be a good technopreneur, you have to go through this process of failures and
ah,
learning, right?
yeah,
And that is terrifying for most people, right?
yeah,
Like, it's like technopreneurship is literally learning how to walk for the first time. You're gonna face plant many times, and that is part of the journey.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because school generally does not prepare you for that. Because school up to today has been designed in such a way to prepare you for employment,
yeah, yun.
which is why it's very streamlined and optimized for employment. And so if you just go through school, and graduate and do well, usually you will land a good job and it's smooth because it's
Yeah,
optimized for that. But if you decide to take a detour and go the entrepreneurship route, there's huge gaps, like, figuring out like many different things. And it turns out you have to have
yeah,
grit, you have to have determination, you have to have creativity, and all this come together, plus a good sense of timing, the market, and
yeah,
business model creation, and then do that and trial and error, where failure is actually part of the discovery process, where
yeah,
failure is actually not you just learning lessons, but failure is actually an acceptable part of running the experiments until you create a viable business model. So, in other words, you need to have a healthy dose, not healthy dose, sorry. You need to have a healthy attitude and perspective towards failure when you want to become an entrepreneur. And
entrepreneur.
yeah. And now,
Yeah,
how does school prepare you for failure? It doesn't.
yeah.
I mean, you
It
are penalized for failure.
That's interesting kasi um one of the things na nga no companies are encouraging their product teams now and even technology teams to lump them all together is failure. No, but yun na nga ano parang sa school failure is not rewarded, and I guess yun nga,
No.
meron namang
Yeah.
parang a way siguro to reward that in school, no? Experimentation, rewarding the process that you went through versus the result that came out because of that process, siguro. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
interesting,
like
interesting.
experimentation. I remember like science laboratories. I feel like that is just the remaining part of a school. If there is a science laboratory, where science laboratory, where failure can be made into an option, but even there, like for example, if something explodes in a beaker explodes or
Yeah,
breaks, that's still seen as taboo. Like
yeah,
like that's still seen as a bad outcome. Like you would be apologizing for something that broke. You would be apologizing for wasting something, right?
yeah.
Even if you learn something out of it, you'd be apologizing. You'd be called like, oh, dumb, you didn't read the manual. You didn't read the. Why didn't you read it first, right? Like where if you
Yeah,
mix this chemical with this other chemical, it's gonna create a reaction that's explosive in nature.
yeah,
But the fact is, you actually learned when you did that, and you're like, ooh, experimentation. That should be celebrated, but it's not
yeah.
because when you're actually running a company, you don't also want people to be experimenting all the time. You want people to follow the manual. You want
Uh-huh.
people to pay attention during onboarding and go to the guidelines and stick to that because you already have a working business model. You
Yeah,
already have a working operation, and you just need people to fill the roles and keep it going. And I think that's a good thing. But that's not entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is a process of discovery,
correct.
and so people who tend to discover are people who experiment, and people who experiment cannot
Feel a lot.
experiment if every time the result of an experiment is negative, right?
Yeah.
It's
Like,
not
'di
the
ba yung
success
Thomas
outcome.
Edison, 'di ba? Like before the actual working light bulb, 10,000 tries daw, 'di ba? So that's really that's actually a very good and profound thing to say na we need to reward failure some more. And even actually, so that Albert coming from a more entrepreneur mindset, right? But as
Yeah,
an
yeah.
employee, actually that's really true as well, no? Parang experiment with certain things like R&D should be a focus, or
Mm.
you know, one thing that you need to look at also. Um, if you, I think we talked about this actually with in one episodes. Now, if you're in a company that's more of less experiments, then do it outside, right?
Yeah.
Uh Try some things out, no, something like that. So cool, 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 cool. I think going back naman, no, if I may dive back to my side of things now, being an employee,
Yeah.
I and Albert kind of touched on this actually, and there are similar skills that are needed for you to actually rise up the ranks fairly quickly.
Okay. Yeah, let me ask you that question then. Like, how
Yeah.
do you get promoted? Like, if
Yeah,
you're an
yeah, yeah,
employee, how do you
yeah.
optimize your chances of succeeding in the career ladder? So how do you get promoted?
In the same way as in entrepreneurship, you build network, right? And
Mhm.
you also need to learn other things such more than technology lang, no? It's the same way as an employee. I think it's very paano ba? Uh I want to say this positively. So it's likely no, companies would reward employees that actually do more than what is required, right? So
Mm.
in essence, parang for example, if you're a programmer and you think that your job is just tech and delivering the actual code, that's good, right? Code quality, very little inefficiencies, walang bugs. That's good. But what actually makes your team leader notice you is the other things, right? Because that's kind of expected eh. And when we see people do unexpected things such as parang, boss, nakita ko lang ganito yung priority natin or ganito yung design natin ngayon sa sign up. Ngayon kasi parang ganito na yung standard eh. 'Di ba? Parang voicing out, questioning, no? And that's again yung parang kind of experimenting nature, no, na how about we try this? Voicing out, that's actually very good, no? And you get noticed. Same time, being more attuned towards business. Kasi nga, just like what Albert said, no,
Being
everyone's
more
doing
attuned towards business.
business acumen, business skills, no, or
Okay.
not just the technology side. So sabi ni Albert nga, di ba, na lahat naman ng companies talaga for like they're there to make money, right? And so in that sense, if you're more ano ba, giving value towards that as well, no, just like that comment, no, I think we're gonna have more signups if we design it this way, or ganito na kasi yung ginagawa ng ibang companies ngayon, medyo dated na yung ganyan, etc. Voicing out gets you noticed. Second time, parang mas may ano ka, parang this guy actually cares about what we're doing, right?
Mm.
So I think you'll be rewarded um, fairly quicker than others pagka ganon. Kasi nagsistand out ka eh. You really have to stand out versus your peers. No, I think that's one good way to get promoted
So what I'm
fairly
hearing
quickly.
is that if you just stick to doing exactly what is in your job description, you will
Yeah.
be staying in your job. In order to like go get promoted, you need to also
Yeah.
be doing more than what is in your job description.
Correct, correct. No, and certain different companies actually, depending on the maturity, then would have like career paths, no, and say na junior developer, mid-level developer, senior developer, for example, and maybe a senior manager, meaning nagli-lead ka na ng team, no? And they would actually tell you, no, and come the time of performance ratings, no, na sabihan ka na, okay, you're really doing well at this particular skill and capability, but you need to work on these things moving forward. So take advantage of that, those
Mm.
opportunities to get feedback from your team leader. Kasi yun nga eh, parang that's a very good sign that you actually care for your output, and at the same time parang iba to parang yung iba kasi nag-aantay lang ng ano ah ng feedback na hindi siya more of voluntarily asking for feedback. So that's a good thing. I
Weird
guess.
question, Jerb. So
Yeah.
if you're doing something beyond your current job
Yeah.
description
Yeah.
and you still don't get promoted, right? How long do you need to keep doing that? For how long do you need to keep standing
Oh.
out? Right? Kasi
Mm.
maybe I mean just imagining somebody saying like, oh, ginagawa ko yan, pero hindi naman ako napapansin. Laging iba lang, you know? Hanggang kailan ba ako magtitiis?
Oh. Actually guys, depende din yan eh. Maraming factors, no? And again, let's say if punta muna tayo sa ano, like if the company is struggling, mahirap talaga 'yan, no? And you know, a promotion would mean like a pay increase too,
Hmm.
right? And for example, then a promotion might also mean uh, a different role, right? So let's say paano ba? In UBX kasi sa amin, mapopromote ka if there's like a role that's empty and that needs to be filled. That's a good ano, parang movement, no? Opportunity. The second one is, for example, if you're actually doing na that specific role, no? And medyo advanced na yung capabilities mo, and so mapopromote ka. Pero pagka ganun kasi, then maybe at that specific time of the company, naghihirap siya, no? Maybe financially challenging, I guess, no? This sounds like too negative. I'm gonna swing over to the positive side later. But pwede rin ganun kasi parang hindi lang talaga siya ma-afford at this point, no? And maybe you would have that discussion with your line manager versus taking on a more victim, ano, parang perspective na ang tagal-tagal ko nang ginagawa yan eh, pero wala pa rin nangyayari. So, maybe you talk to your line manager, bakit nga ba? What do I need to do? Or what do I need to accomplish para makuha ko yung next level?
Yeah, I
Those
love that.
conversations have to be done. Yeah.
I love
Rather
that,
than
Jerb.
an expectation tapos unmet siya tapos magrereklamo ka lang. Mahirap yun eh kasi
Yeah.
hindi naman nila malalaman na ano you were feeling that way. But they should, but you know, you can't assume. Go ahead, Bert. You were
No, I
saying.
was just gonna say I love that you said that you should talk to your manager, right?
Yeah.
We should talk to your manager and ask them like what I want to get promoted. This is my intention. I want to be in that role. How can what can I do to make it happen? What can I work on and so on?
Yeah.
And it's this talking, right, and communication that's really key because I think what we have that's kind of like a behavior that's common is usually like this expectation. You don't talk about it, you just do stuff parinig parinig, not
Yeah.
being direct,
Yeah.
right? And then you talk about it to your peers, to your friends, of like, oh, tagal-tagal ko nang ginagawa, hindi naman ako promote. But you never talk to the one person
Yeah.
that can actually make a difference in your situation, which is your
Yeah.
manager, right? And
Yeah.
so I think this communication skill you need to be learned. Maybe that's the reason why you don't also get promoted, is because you
Yeah.
don't have the communication skills.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
develop that communication skills.
Yeah. Let's say though that on the positive side nga ano, you're actually doing very well na talaga, no? And at the same time kaya naman ng company mag-promote, then it's could either be because this is again guys, being an employee means that you're dealing with people, right? And so maybe your line manager is against you, right? And that's not actually something foreign. Merong mga ganon, no? Or may mga favoritism
Yeah,
that
what
could
do you
actually
do when
happen.
it's like that? Your manager
Ah,
just doesn't like you.
so you can probably talk to the skip level manager, no? Na I think I need to be transferred to a team. I'm having a very difficult time with X and X, and nag-usap na kami na pagka ma-meet ko tong mga ganitong accomplishments, mapopromote ako but hindi pa rin nangyayari. Second thing is that mag-provide proof, document what you've done before, no? Na tingnan mo boss na complete ko naman yung task ko ahead of time, etc., pero hindi pa rin ako na-promote. So that's what you do next, no? Lastly, worst comes to worst, baka ano siya, I love this term. I heard this recently from one of our Manco members in UBX. Parang impedance mismatch. Pwedeng your impedance mismatch is like a mechanical engineering term, meaning nun parang the best example is using a car's battery to power like a flashlight. Parang masyadong hindi siya tugma or siguro mas layman's or na expression is square pegs and round hole. Baka
Mm.
it's the company, no? Then you need to look for other opportunities, no? And that's why people hop from company to companies, right? And that's actually a good way as well to actually get a promotion. No? Kasi most of the time when you get hired with to another company naman, syempre they would incentivize you to hop to the other company, right? So they would actually give you like a premium, um, assuming that they will provide you with the same roles. For example, senior manager ka na dun sa current company mo and you're trying to get to the next level. But this other company, they're only hiring for a senior manager, no? And then sawang-sawa ka na talaga dito sa company mo ngayon, then they need to incentivize you to jump, right? Kasi same level lang eh. If it was a promotion, like you're gonna get like a VP level, for example, or handling a bigger team, for example, then uh, it makes sense kaagad, no? Parang wala nang iisipin, I need to go to that other job. But if it was a lateral transfer, then meron siyang may premium siya. So that's one way, I guess, then to get promoted, right? Parang
Yeah.
pagka yun nga, worst comes to worst na talaga yan, parang hindi ako bagay sa company na to. And I think majority of people actually go that route right away when they don't get what they're wanting to get in their current companies. I think you really need to masama din kasi guys na makita ng mga employers na you hop from one company to the other. Meaning na nun parang baka ikaw din yung problema. Kasi yun nga parang it might be that you don't match with a lot of companies, so maybe you don't match with ours as well. And then also, just like in the same way as we're worried that our summer interns or OJTs just leave us for school right after, we spend a lot of training to train you, no, and also onboard you, and then same time after a year aalis ka din pala. So yun parang medyo bad din yun. So try to do those things muna that I mentioned earlier. Now talk to your line manager, tell him na you're worried na it's been X years and then you've been consistently performing naman. What they need to accomplish, no, and have that verbal agreement with him, in effect. And most actually companies would have like a form also, like a career development plan that you both sign on, no, na if you reach this certain milestones, you get promoted. If nakausap mo na siya, then go to your skip. And if wala na, yun, baka impedance mismatch and you have to look for other opportunities. What do you think, Bert? I'm gonna ask you naman. Like, how would you get promoted in a company?
I think, well, so I would completely agree that the way to get promoted in a company is to do the job of of the role that you wanted to be promoted into already.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's the best way, because sooner or later the question will be like, okay, there's this role that we need to fill. Who fits in this role? The first thing that usually companies do is they look internally. Who fits this role? And if they find somebody who can fit that role that's already in the company, they will get that person,
Correct.
because hiring is expensive, right? Like you have, I mean, it takes more effort. So if you could do that, then you promote somebody. Also, because it's also bad form for a company to like get somebody who's qualified. If there's somebody qualified internally and he's showing that they're qualified, and then you're
Yeah.
gonna get somebody else from the outside,
Totoo
like,
yan. Yeah.
so but if you are not doing it, then hanggang salita lang, right? Like you're just like saying, "Oh, I can do it," but you can't prove it,
Yeah.
right? So then it goes against you if you're not actually doing it yourself yet.
Yeah.
So that's the best way. Then second, I would say always also talk to your manager so that they are aware of the intention of that and they can consider you, right? Because what if the time comes you're looking for that role and then you didn't talk to them, so you're not the first person in their mind when they think about. It could be like this other friend from outside the company that asked them, "Are you hiring a so and so? Because I'm looking for a job," right? And so instead of you being the first person that comes into their mind when the role opens up, it's another person. So you have to, you have to remember that the world does not think or revolve around each one of us, right? People are
Correct.
not, your manager is not dreaming about you day and night, right? They're just not, right? So to help them like remember you when there's a specific role, you have to communicate and to have to advocate for yourself. And it doesn't have to be like desperation. It just has to be like, hey, just letting you know, I am looking for this. I'm gonna be intentional about this, and then you remind them every month, every other week, maybe in your check-ins. I mean, it can just be in passing, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey Bert, we are at the hour, and maybe
Sure.
one final question for both of us to close this episode, and then maybe later on, let's remind everybody that we are actually in a theme, no,
Yeah.
and we have certain speakers that we have lined up for you for the next episodes. Let me ask both of us this one, no. How did we get, like, what skills are needed to get to a CTO position? Kasi yun nga, I
Mm.
think we kind of touch on beginning in your career or before you start with your career, no, nasa school ka pa, mag-ano ka about opportunities, hackathons, OJT, boot camps, for example. And then
So name top
during,
three skills. Top
three
three.
skills that you need to be, if you want to aspire to be a CTO. And maganda to kasi sa'yo, CTO ka na kaagad nung, well, hindi naman kaagad, but when Simp started, you're
I just gave
CTO
my
right
name the
away.
title, right?
Oo, oo. Yung sa akin is more of, actually both naman talaga nag-grind, but I was different yung track ko kasi employee, from software engineer, and then paano ako naging CTO, and how did I get here? What were the skills needed to? So tatlo. Go ahead. Ikaw muna, Bert.
Okay, so number one, definitely leadership. CTO is a chief technology officer. The word
Yeah.
chief there, I would say it's a leadership role. So you need to have leadership skills. That's
Yeah.
number one. Number two, I'm just gonna use CTO. So number two is technology. You have to have technology skills, and not just
Yes.
one technology. You have to know a broad range of technology skills,
Yeah.
because a large part of your job is to make decisions on your on technology strategy of your company, right? You're
Yeah.
going to be choosing from one programming language to another. You're going to be choosing from one stack to another. You're going to be choosing what databases, right? Like you're going to invest your company strategy on.
Agree.
You're going to be making those decisions. So you have to be aware of what the technologies are out there. And
Agree.
lastly, officer. So officer, I would say
Ang daya.
it relates to business, right? You're part of a business organization, and so
Yeah.
you need to have business skills.
Yeah.
Technology, again, I mentioned, is just part of a strategy of the business, and so in order for you to be an effective CTO, you need to know how to liaise or to communicate with the business stakeholders in your organization,
Correct.
and then make the proper decisions for technology to support those business decisions. Now, if you are a CTO who just focuses on the technology, and your technology that you choose doesn't necessarily fit with the business needs of the organization, you will get fired as a CTO. Like you you will disappear
Totoo yan, totoo
because
yan.
that's your responsibility. Now
Yeah.
I kind of cheated, but how about you, Jerb?
I don't want to say the same things, although I really agree with what you've said already. Like you kind of chief technology officers or leadership technology and business agree talaga no. And maybe just to harp on that last portion that Albert mentioned, yung business side. Um ano kasi in everything that happens in a company, there has to be business value. No? So, for example,
Mm,
a promotion has to have a business value. Training should have a business value. Moving over, migrating from Azure to Google, GCP has to have a business value. At the end of the day, those things are asked talaga. No? So, maybe as managers right now who are aspiring to be CTOs, um, those are the kinds of conversations that happen in the boardroom or at the
mm,
mancom level na pagka yung CTO nyo nagsasuggest ng, "'Di, let's migrate to GCP or AWS from on-premise," for example. Ang tatanungin dun is not about bakit, although one one 'yon 'no, bakit GCP over, let's say, Azure, bakit tayo lilipat, gano'n, gano'n. But one of the biggest questions is what's the business value? Are there gonna be cost reduction if we
mm.
move over to that? No? And those things iniisip talaga ng CTO. So hindi lang siya technology. Anyway, so agree with what Albert said, but siguro para maiba lang din to add, no? And maybe uh that kind of related. But one skill that you really need to have is influencing others, no? So I think
Yeah.
leading, that's one, but also, um influencing, I think, is a very nice skill to have kasi it's kind of like parang like you want to convince people to support you, right? And influence is a skill you need to have that, no? And then at the same time, when you're trying to lead people, ganun din, no? How do you convince them to actually follow your direction? So I think that's actually one. Um, Albert said about business na kanina, no? So ang sa akin is, I think, uh, adaptability is also something that you
Mm,
need, no? Kasi you're as a technology guy or girl coming from college, naisip mo, coding lang talaga yung gagawin mo. Hindi yan. Kulang yan. Kasi you have to adapt and you have to, as we mentioned earlier, no, in the pandemic, you have to adjust talaga or else you would be irrelevant or kahit hindi naman magiging irrelevant, but hindi ka magsha-shine with the other peers, and so hindi ka aangat, 'di ba? Hindi mo makukuha yung CTO position kasi nga ano ka lang parang you meet the expectation. So you have to adapt, you have to get other skills, for example, and you have to train or learn about other like uh influence, for example, I mentioned earlier, or talking in public, presentation, those things actually are very important. So adaptability, I think, is
mm.
second. And then third
Go,
is
Jerb.
nag-iisip ako kasi agree na ako dun sa tatlo mo pero para mas may value.
Yeah, go. Think
Um,
about it.
so ang sinabi ko na is influence, second is adaptability. Um, Actually sige magdo-double down na lang ako on business on the officer side kasi Uh, and this is one of the webinars I've recently joined and moderated na it is important for you as an IT leader or
Mm,
IT profession to have business acumen kasi I think you as an engineer, 'di ba, we have that joy na something that we're building is actually being used by someone and at the same time parang uh, gumana siya, no? That's one thing. But yung joy talaga na ginagamit yung ginawa mo, ang
true.
laking ano na yun, reward yun sa atin, 'di ba, as engineers, no? So
Yeah.
software engineers for that matter. So sa akin, the way to get that sooner is actually thinking about the business, no? Kasi nga how are we providing value to our customers? All of those things I think have to be there if you really want to be progressing in your career and ultimately become a chief technology officer of a company. So, yun. I-double down ko yung business. So, sabi ni Albert, leadership, and then technology prowess, business, and then I agree with business, and then sabi ko din influence, and then adaptability. So we leave you with those 5 skills that are really needed for you to do very well with being a CTO, or if you want to get that position. So those things are the most important ones. Again, as I guess a look ahead or to whet your appetite for the next episodes, we are gonna release like a content calendar soon in our page to show you sino yung mga speakers that we've actually invited to join us in CTOs Discuss. So the next episode would focus more towards software engineering. So if you're a developer, that's a very good episode for you to join. No, and if you have questions for our speaker for next week is Don Gamboa from White Cloak Technologies. Send those questions to us ahead so that we would prepare, no, them ahead of time as well, and para matanong namin siya live. The next episode is about UX and UI, and I think that's also a very good topic. Kasi ngayon parang mas may focus na yung area na yon versus I think 10 or 5 years ago. Something really good to discuss, and we've invited an expert in Christian San Jose who's very well known in the Philippines for UX and UI design.
Super excited about this episode, yeah.
Actually, yeah, marami tayong matutunan din sa kanya, CSJ. And then the next one is actually about quality engineering and quality assurance, yung testing. No? So it's actually a full-time profession. For some that are in college who don't know actually no na meron palang ganun, akala nyo development lang. So ito meron tong maganda din to na pathway actually for an IT career. So we will be adding more topics to the theme as we get to confirm with the speakers that we have in mind. And we might actually have like another CTO join us to discuss about IT careers in this theme. So there, anything to add, Bert?
No, I mean, thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to the next episodes where we have our guests. So please do share with your friends, like our page, share it with your friends who are into IT, into computer science, who are basically planning a career in IT. That's what we're going to be talking about this next few weeks.
Thank
That's
you.
it for
Thank
me.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Cool.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
evening.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
What I've seen that hinders a lot of people in general is they believe that doing their job well actually gets them promoted.
How would you demystify AI for a 10-year-old?
It's actually harder to explain AI to an older person. Hi, welcome to CTOs Discuss.
So you want to work in big tech companies like Google and Facebook, or create your own startup like Airbnb and Instagram? OmniQuotient is here to help. OmniQuotient is an online learning platform where you can learn something new from prominent developers every day while creating meaningful connections with them. Just go to omniquotient.com. Follow the topics that you want to learn and the developers you want to learn from. Share your tips and tricks in coding and interact with other developers. Join the OmniQuotient community today.